Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening for our Microsoft Tech Summit panel. For our first panel, we're going to talk about modern workplace. I'm grateful to be here. My name is Dux Raymond Sai. I serve as the CMO of AvePoint. I'm also grateful that I'm a Microsoft Regional Director and MVP. And boy, these Tech Summit has just been an amazing event as Microsoft traverses around the world and sharing all the goodness around Microsoft 365 and Azure. What do you think of this event so far? Really? What do you guys think of this event so far? Good, right? We're in a great venue here in Birmingham. I left Washington, D.C. for this cold, windy, dreary weather. Huh? But anyway, we're all inside, and I would love to get to know our esteemed panelists. So why don't we do some quick intros? So Tina, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. So my name is Ying. I'm the Product Marketing Manager in Microsoft 365 Compliance team, focused on Compliance Manager and Service Trust Portal, which is a service compliance for Microsoft 365.
Awesome.
So hi, everyone. I'm Stephen Collier. I'm a Microsoft MVP in Office 365. By day, I work for Marks & Spencer, where I also help users with Office 365.
Hi, I'm Simon Denton. I'm a business architect at a company called Mark McDonald. No, we don't flip burgers, we build buildings like this. And so while I am by day as architect, I try and work out how our users use Office 365. And I have about 16,000 users all across the world. So we've been in this journey for about 3 or 4 years. And I'm also a Microsoft MVP.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you folks for taking the time joining us. So let's get the conversation started. So what we want to do is we want to zoom in this idea of modern workplace. But I don't know about you guys, when I hear the word modern workplace, digital transformation, fourth industrial revolution, I don't really know what that means to me, right? To me, it sounds like this big marketing buzzword. So maybe, Tina, from your perspective, how do you think about modern workplace and how should customers consider their journey to get to that modern workplace?
So when I think about modern workplace, now I think about like we enable and empower user to use to access to their data from anywhere, from any device or from any application they are using securely. And also because I work in the compliance team, so we also focus on making sure that no matter where and what device you use, you can comply with the regulatory requirements that matter to your organization.
I mean, I love that definition, right? Being able to work from anywhere with anything in a safe manner. So Simon, I know from a Microsoft perspective, the messaging they've been putting out around modern workplace ties hand in hand with Microsoft 365.
Sure, yeah.
Now, before I jump into that, anybody know the difference with Microsoft 365 and Office 365? All right, only 1, 2, 3. Do you want to know what the difference is? Yeah. Okay. So.
And you're asking me?
Yeah. Maybe I'm gonna have you kind of share what Microsoft 365 is about and how that ties into the modern workplace story.
Sure. Okay. So rather than saying product X, product Y, product whatever, I'm going to try and give you a really poor metaphor. You can imagine it's breakfast time and you're consuming some cereal, right? If you just pour the cereal on the table, it's not going to be really easy to eat, right? But if you put that cereal in a bowl, well, the bowl contains the cereal, right? And you really need access to the bowl, so you need a spoon to get into it, and you really need that cereal to float around in the bowl and make it really good and go down really well, right?
And milk, right? Milk.
Which is milk. See?
That's right.
You see where I'm going with this. Now, Office 365 really is just a cereal that you're going to pour on the counter. If you don't have a bowl to keep it secure, that's the EMS and security piece, right? You need some access and identity. You need a spoon to get into that bowl. And really, you need everything to flow really, really well, so it's Windows 10, right? So that is Microsoft 365 in layman's terms, or breakfast eaters' terms.
It looks like you need to hire him for marketing, no? So yeah, Microsoft 365 is a collection of different Microsoft technologies, which makes sense, right? In the modern workplace, you go to work every single day, the first thing you do is what? You turn on Windows. You fire up Outlook. Then maybe you fire up Teams. And in the context of everything being secure too, because you're logged into your environment. So I love that story. And Stephen, from your perspective, in your world at Marks & Spencer, how do you see the journey happening today towards this modern workplace destination?
Yeah, I think there's I think we're at an intersection of three big problems for the IT department, and Modern Workspace is really trying to fix those problems. So, one of those is, cybersecurity. I think, you must have been living under a rock if you haven't seen massive cybersecurity incidents. None of us want to be the next Sony or the next Wreck-It, or someone of these who's been taken out by a cybersecurity incident. So that's a big risk. We all need to do something about it. We can't hide from it, and we need to get better at doing it. At the same time, I think we've suddenly seen a big impact from what we used to call shadow IT, where people would go outside of your corporate systems and find, well, actually, I can do better if I go and use somebody else's product. I'll go and use some other feature. And that also created new barriers, but also we're not in business to get people to go and mix their own things. And then finally, there's cost saving. We all, as IT groups, are all under increasing pressure to reduce our costs, and we're looking for how can we use all this technology to switch the game around and not be the cost center. So I think Microsoft 365 is trying to address each of those issues. There's massive features in EMS to help you with security, with locking down your user accounts, with detecting anomalous behavior. Office 365 is trying to give you every bit of feature you might need, so you'll never go out and start using Trello or Google Drive or any of those other products as well. And then finally, from a cost point of view, if you look at things like the autopilot features we've been hearing a lot about today, you can suddenly start taking massive amounts of cost out of your business by getting your users to just do the stuff themselves. And they're all very interesting. We're looking at all of them.
Sure.
And I think it's a great development.
So speaking about users in modern workplace, right? We all know the true measure of success of modern workplace is adoption. Do you agree? And we kind of, sometimes we're challenged with that. And obviously any kind of tips and tricks on how we gain adoption is, and more importantly, sustainable adoption is important. So I know, Simon, we talked a lot about this almost, 10 months ago?
Sure, yeah.
I love your story on how you guys deployed Office 365, especially in your organization. Maybe you want to share some tips and tricks on how you measured the value and how people got to adopt right away?
Yeah, sure. Okay, I'll give you the short version, which is we kept it darn simple. Is the way to do it. There's a real risk when you face a dozen products and a dozen solutions that you kind of configure the thing to death, right? And what configuration to death really leads to is really hard adoption, right? Because you're trying to force fit everyone in your organization to work exactly the same way. And what you want to focus upon is actually the draw. Actually, what makes my life easier? Can I get it done over here? And so our focus has always been to keep it as simplistic as possible. So in terms of our sort of a journey, we lit up Yammer first, right? Because that gave us a real beautiful platform for everyone to ask questions going forwards. It gave them a location where they could ask questions about different things of business, and we could start showing that value that you can actually get that anytime, anywhere, any device kind of thing straight away. And from there, Exchange, velocity migrations, everyone gets panicky when they say, I'm going to move your mailbox from the ground to the cloud. That's not scary stuff, actually. That works. An administrator has made a change to your settings. It's the only thing our users have seen, right? After that, they just get their mail wherever. So our focus has been trying to keep the process as simple as possible all the way through. Try not to configure the thing to absolute death, but keep it within our regulation and legislative needs, and then work through that journey there.
And that's a very important point, right? As IT, we're always focused on the more complex stuff. Oh, when we go to the cloud, we want to integrate our CRM, our human resources system, SAP, Run DMC. You want to connect all that. You got it. But then it's all these low-hanging fruits for quick wins that we kind of fail to take care of, right? The other story, and this is the last story I want to get out of you, Simon, is the story around saving money on travel.
Yeah. Okay.
I thought that was huge.
Okay. So yeah. One of the first things we really led with was moving to Link at the time. I know it's Skype now, but we moved to Skype, and we had two big fears, right? One is the headset culture, moving everyone from a handset to a headset. That fear did not manifest. Okay, we moved one office from being on desktops, desktop phones, to using headsets. We thought that office would need a lot of TLC and love, 200 odd people. That office was up and running within 1 hour. Headsets is just like business as usual. But we followed that up when we moved Skype all the way through the world, we followed it up with a little bit of a restriction, a little bit of a hardening of our policies around travel. And in 1 year, we managed to knock off a good $1 million plus off our annual travel bill. So you could imagine that suddenly Skype had given us an immediate cost saving, but also changed the way people worked. And actually, it's changed it for the best. We've been able to set up operation centers around the world. Engineers have been able to collaborate virtually using their desktop sharing, things like that. I reckon, whilst we know we've saved some money on travel, that's probably a tiny, tiny percentage that we've saved on wasted collaborative effort. And I think that's the really big message.
No, that's really, really cool and important. And I know as a part of that, there may be folks here that are keen, they're interested, we want to go that route, but docs, there's stuff there's a 4-letter word that's holding us back, and the time is ticking, right? So maybe, Tina, can you shed light around this 4-letter word called GDPR? How should we think about GDPR in this modern workplace journey and be confident about it, especially what Microsoft has to offer to customers?
So I'd like to know, how many of you know about GDPR and are acting on GDPR now? Okay, around 30%.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, so for GDPR, Microsoft is committed to become GDPR compliance by May 25th. 2018, so it's only 4 months away. And we also really want to share with you our experience to comply with this complex regulation. So recently, we just have a new compliance solution called Compliance Manager. We have it in public preview now. And then so you can access to Compliance Manager using your ADD identity, and then you will be able to see how we help you to conduct risk assessment in terms of GDPR compliance. So we know that one of the biggest pain point is that data protection officer or compliance officer, they might know GDPR really well. And while IT expert, you know the solutions. You know how to use AAD, you know how to configure data loss prevention, etc. But then there's no connection between the solution and the GDPR requirements. So this is one of the biggest pain points we see and hear from customers. So Compliance Manager help you to build the connection. So we want to be very transparent about how we internally manage our controls. And we also want you to help you to connect the connection between the solutions that your company already have with the GDPR requirements. So that's the biggest update we have for the GDPR.
Yeah, and if everybody wants to learn more about GDPR and Compliance Manager and how you can take advantage of it, Tina has a session first thing tomorrow, right? Around GDPR?
Yeah. So we have a session tomorrow at 10:15 for the GDPR session.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I encourage everyone, because I'm sure especially in this region, it's going to impact you, impact your business. So make sure you take advantage of that. One key thing that I'm very impressed with and excited with is, look, back in the days when we think about empowerment, we're like, empowerment, not Microsoft. Let's do the whole Silicon Valley startup, Slack, Trello, Asana, all that. But then the problem with that is security and compliance is an issue. But then when we think about security and compliance back in the day, we think like government, lockdown, VPN, Citrix, right? But what Microsoft has done, they've bridged that gap. Nobody's perfect, but they're working toward to make sure the fine balance between empowerment, collaboration, adoption is also safe and secure and well protected. Yeah?
Yeah.
Now, any questions? Any questions around modern workplace or the stack in modern workplace that we can answer? All right, okay. So let me go back to Stephen here. So from your world, your perspective, any stories you can share in quick wins around modern workplace that's resonating in your organization at Marks and Spencer?
Yeah, so we went on a transition this last year to move from our old legacy telephone system to Skype and cloud PBX. What I was really impressed with the speed at which we could do that. By not having infrastructure on premises, we took 5 months to go from 0 to 7,000 users actively working in the cloud, able to work anywhere. During that time, I can graph it and I can see we're now doing twice as much talking as we used to do. Now, well, that's a good thing, but talking is collaboration. Companies work on collaboration. I can now easily see I've doubled that in a really short amount of time. At the same time, we're driving Smarter working is what we call modern workplace, and that's about encouraging people to work more flexibly, choose where they need to be each day, don't come into the offices every day. That gives us an opportunity to close offices, which is a big cost saving if you can do that for yourselves. So, it's been a really quick, fast project to get us through to that. And I think it takes a lot of confidence at the moment. I think a lot of people have done, PBX has always seemed like this sort of holy grail. If you can just blast through it, you can get through to the other side. It's not that painful in my experience. It's not as hard as I think PBX people would like you to think.
Yep. In one common trend we're seeing too, obviously mail, Skype, those are the foundational workloads that moves to the cloud to start this journey. But then beyond that, we have a lot of great advanced workloads from SharePoint Online, OneDrive, Yammer, Teams, Staff Hub. And almost always the common question becomes, when do I use what and when? Anybody get asked around that? When do I use Teams versus Office 365 versus Groups in Outlook, OneDrive, all that? So I guess back to the panel here, what kind of guidance or tips and tricks can you share with the folks here around how to provide some kind of guidance and so that folks here can help their business, walk through that journey and really maximize the best tool set for what they need it for. Stephen?
Yeah, I think there's two ways to look at that, or two ways I've used to look at that over time. The traditional view is, you know what, there are a lot of tools, and there are a lot of things with cool names that people and certain type of mentality would like to categorize them all down, and you tell me when I should use OneDrive versus Groups versus Teams versus Yammer versus all those features. What I try to encourage people to do is just try one. Try it. If it doesn't work for you, swap and use another one. It's not that you have to be perfect. And I probably, if you come and ask me, I probably can't figure out exactly the right tool for you either. So take some confidence and have a go. The other bit I'd add on to that, I think it's getting simpler. I think the answer is, by the middle of this year, the answer is probably Teams. Start with Teams, and then if Teams doesn't work, use that as your sort of your gateway to use into other services. So start with Teams, and then you might, from there, realize this doesn't work, and I'll use Yammer, or I'll use the SharePoint bit of Teams, or the files, or the conversations in Outlook. But Teams looks like it's a really great place now with all the bits all lined up and easy to use.
Okay, so yeah, we approach it from a view of simplicity. So yes, the big question that does come up for us a lot is the Teams versus Yammer piece. Which one do you use and when? I'm not a big fan, like you, Stephen, of the really prescriptive periodic table approach to stuff. It appeals to about 2% of the world's population, and that's probably about it. Normally studying chemistry and not even using your products. So we really approach the fact that we are talking about a modern workplace. So you need a modern desktop that allows you to get your work done, right? Your day-to-day work done. That is Teams. That is your space for getting work done. But you also need a space to be able to wander around the office, go ask people, understand things, get some serendipitous discover things that you don't know, ask questions that you really know your peer group, who are locked with their little horse racing blinkers on, doing some work, won't know the answer to. And you need a space for serendipitous discovery. So we divide it up quite simply. If you need to share knowledge, learn, discover, get help, that's your Yammer space. That is your outer world. That is your office, your wider office, your modern workplace. Your modern desktop is the Teams environment where you're just getting stuff done. And that's how we divide it up. And then we say to people, it's fine. If you want to use Planner to run your project, that's fine. If you need something with Gantt charts and something more sophisticated, Project Online's there. Just rest assured, we've put the basic security wrappers and processes and protocols around each of those products just to give it a light enough touch to keep you broadly safe in what you're doing. That way, you don't need to worry about, am I safe using this? Can I share this stuff? We've thought about that bit for you. You just go and use the products that suit the way your team works and the thing that you're delivering.
That's a fantastic point. Both of you raises simplicity. And then when people ask me, well, that's not enough, Dux. How do you know what to use when? So I ask a question. How do you know what to post on Instagram versus Facebook versus Twitter? Sometimes you double post as well. I just know. I just figured out my vibe here, right? So it's the exact same thing. Now, Tina, let me ask you. In your world, you're at Microsoft, right? So what guidance do you guys get on what to use when?
So I think We don't really have a clear guidance about where we need to post anything. So like for me, I try different platforms to see what's the most effective way, like Simon just told us.
Right.
And then so like I need to promote compliance manager internally, and then I know that Teams is something that people are starting to use more. So I just create a Teams group for compliance manager communication. And I find it really helpful because they feel the field sales, the partner feel like they can just communicate, ask me question directly from Teams. But I also know some of the other marketing manager, they use Yammer because they are used to using a Yammer to be a broadcast the web page.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think there's no clear guidelines. Like, what do you say? Like, we just try and then figure out a way that we think is the most effective for our product.
Sure. And then, before we kind of wrap up here, 2 key points around that. Number one, if you want to get ideas more from a business use case scenario, I encourage everyone to check out Microsoft Fast Track. They have a thing there called Productivity Library. And boy, they show you business use cases based on industry. So let's say you're in healthcare and you're in healthcare and you're doing sales. They show you use cases, and then from those use cases, they tie to Microsoft technologies that can help and support you. And then beyond that, certainly make sure you check out Tech Community. There's a lot of great guidance and example and tips and tricks on how folks are using tools to get their job done. What's that? Oh yeah, and we're there as well. If you haven't checked out Tech Community, feel free to jump in, yeah? Now, are there any questions from folks here around modern workplace, Office 365, all the workloads that Microsoft offers? We're good? All right. So before we end, if there's one word of advice you can leave everyone here around the journey to the modern workplace, how should people approach it? And more importantly, how can they measure success? What would that be? It's just one quick tip that you guys can share. Anybody want to start?
You want to start?
So 2 bits maybe not quite connected, but quick thought. So I think, try not to look at your current functionality and what your current tools do. Just look at and try and imagine a world using the new tool. Because what you will find is that things will work differently, things will be richer, things will evolve over time. And I think you can get a lot of friction if you hang up and go, well, I've got to have feature X, Y, or Z. Be clear, there's lots of us, my company, Simon's company, Microsoft, using Office 365 and working great with it. You're probably not special and have a super special niche thing. I think in terms of success, the only way to communicate success in our experience is to pick up stories. Don't just look at statistics, but get that specific story that you can share in your business to say, this happened and this was the benefit. So we've got an example of a story from when we were using Yammer. We serve a lot of customers through our stores. Customers come in. We had a customer came in who her son had lost his teddy bear. It was a very special thing to him. He was going through some treatment for cancer at the time. It was a big disaster. This was a product that we had sold 2 years ago. It was completely out of stock everywhere. Things only stay in stock for about 6 months. But the colleague who took that company, posted it on Yammer, went all around the business. I could see just over the time, people all around our organization looking through cupboards, checking with other people, seeing what was happening with this. And then eventually somebody in a store on the other side of the country found in a back of a cupboard, which had been a prize that was never captured, the exact right thing. We all saw this happen. We saw them taking pictures of wrapping it up, sending it to the other person. The other person then shared back with us pictures of the response they got from the customer, and we got a beautiful letter back from the customer as well. But you can pick that out as a little story, and then everyone just twigs, this allowed us to be a better company, or allowed us to be more in touch with our customers, which is a key thing that we aim to do at Marks & Spencer.
And at the end of the day, that's the most important thing, right? It's less about technology, but more about delivering
don't
customer...
get hung up on percentages of people and read counts and views and stuff like that. Look for those really magic stories, because they're the things that appeal to people in their heart. The numbers just look like numbers and graphs.
Awesome. Simon?
Yeah, stories win. My advice really is do not try and fight the system. Do not configure it to death. Try and keep it as simple as possible, right? SharePoint is an amazing tool, for example, but your first temptation is to really tweak it, customize it, code it, make it fit a particular niche that you're trying to do. Stop. take a big step back and go, why on earth am I doing this? You want to keep the things as simple as possible, and you want to keep, ideally, as closely aligned to what Microsoft are doing, because they are changing some things every day of the week. If you're following the roadmap, the Office roadmap, there's a new shiny new feature or tweak or a widget, something hitting your message center every day. So your pain curve will be through the roof if you put tons of additional effort into tweaking and customizing your services. Really just think about, keep it simple, go with the flow, and don't fight it. Get the stories. The stories are brilliant. Yes, you will need a C-suiter who will want some metrics. He will want to see the number of mailboxes and the usage of content, give him the graph straight from the Office 365 reporting center. Show him the graph. That's the numbers. That's you done. Don't go any deeper than that. Really use a tool like Yammer to bring up your stories, the good news stories, and really get people in your business to champion the product for you. Anything pushed by IT is not received. Things pushed from the business is received.
Awesome. When you say go with the flow, you're talking about Microsoft Flow? No?
Oh, yeah, that too.
All right. Tina, word of advice as everybody goes through this journey of modern workplace transformation?
Yeah, so I think modern workplace, we really want to bring the best out of Office 365, Windows 10, and also EMS to you. And then one thing I want to emphasize is that we want to be a partner with you. So once you use Microsoft 365, it becomes a shared responsibility between Microsoft and organization to make sure that your data is really secure and compliant with the regulatory requirements. So there are a lot of resources, our Service Trust portal, which is servicetrust.microsoft.com. So if you're really want to know more about how we help you to secure your data, how we help you to be compliant, then you can visit that website to know more about our capability and all the information you need.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. So hopefully you guys have gotten a lot of insights into this, and certainly tomorrow there's a lot more sessions that you can learn. So for example, first thing tomorrow, I'll have a session on Microsoft Teams overview. I'll co-present it with a good friend of mine, Richard from Dyson. So you'll not only learn about Teams, but you also learn about how Dyson is using Microsoft Teams. We have a session on Yammer with Yammer product manager Steve Nguyen, and he'll talk about Yammer overview. And there's also a SharePoint session tomorrow on SharePoint Hybrid if you're keen. What do you guys think? Helpful? Well, let's give our esteemed panel a big round of applause. Thank you, guys.